Larkin Poe, 93.5 WMMG. That's their new single, Holy Ghost Fire, and we've got a treat for you this morning. We have got the sisters, Rebecca and Megan from Larkin Poe, on the phone line with us this morning. Going to check in with them. A lot of things to talk about because they do have a new album that's going to be coming out later this year in June, and I think, as I understand, they just put out another single today, so we'll talk a little bit about that. Lots of questions for the girls, but first of all, thank you so much for joining us today. How is the current situation and the life treating you guys? I mean, I would imagine you've had to cancel live performances and things. How are you guys handling that?
You know, we're handling it as gracefully as possible. I feel like everyone is undergoing a lot of change right now. But yeah, we were supposed to actually be in Tokyo right now playing shows, but instead we're home quarantining in Nashville at our respective homes. But, man, really happy to be on the air with you. Thanks for playing the track.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I told this story to someone, a manager or someone who I was emailing back and forth when we were getting this set up. I told this story a couple of years ago. We chatted here on the radio when I was on the evenings. You guys were playing at the Bourbon and Beyond Festival here in Louisville. And like a year later, it was like a year later after we did the interview, I had a random guy come up to me at the grocery store. And he says, man, I loved that Larkin Poe interview that you did like a year ago, and after I checked him out after that, and I wound up going to see him down in Tennessee, so he checked out your show. I thought that was cool. A lot of people have discovered you guys through the Tip of the Hat series that you do on. I mean, that's how I first found out about Larkin Poe. I was looking through Facebook or YouTube or something one day, and I saw this headline. I think it was one of the news places online that had picked you guys up, that picked up the video or whatever, and it was the headline, like one of these clickbait titles, like, check out these girls rocking Led Zeppelin with like 14 exclamation points. And I was like, okay, I'll check it out. And I'm like, wow, the 14 exclamation points were well deserved. But you guys, I kind of see that as almost the new cover band at the bar kind of thing, is doing covers on YouTube. I mean, would you agree with that it's a good way for people to discover your music?
We actually started making the videos more as a practicing tool because it's, when you're on the road, sometimes you aren't pushing yourself. So we wanted to start learning songs just so that we were keeping our chops up. And we just kind of on a whim released a video. We did not expect it to kind of go viral. So it's a great way to connect with people, I think, that when we release our album, it's all original material, but, people love to hear something they're familiar with at first. It's a great way for people to kind of get introduced to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And the internet is, it's changing the way that we consume music. Would you agree with that, in the sense that, in a sense, we've kind of lost some things and gained other things? I almost feel like we've lost the art of an album. I don't know that it's as appreciated as much in mainstream culture now, the art of just putting an album together. It's more single-oriented. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I do feel that people consume music far differently than they ever have. And like you're saying, there are pros and there are cons to the shifts, but certainly people consume music in a very bite-sized orientation nowadays. And that's something that certainly doesn't resonate with my sister and I. We grew up listening to classic rock records and, kind of non-formatted music of roots American, bluegrass, rockabilly, old-style country. Like, our parents were playing us so much music that really educated us on the importance of really giving your art some space and allowing a band to take you on a musical journey. And that has certainly been the reference point for my sister and I in the way that we've been producing our records, really wanting to create a story arc and to, create a body of work, not just a single. That's a huge, important thing for us. And luckily, I think our fans have been willing to go on the journey with us of stepping into longer format music, which, especially in these times of quarantine, it's nice to have the distraction of an album, and it sort of feels like, it's your friend.
Yeah, and you talk about some of the influences and listening to the music growing up. I feel like some of the best music in modern times comes from the artists who have really, really followed that musical trail and that history. And I know that you girls have done that because well, number one, you can see it through the Tip of the Hat series, where you guys have covered everything from, Howlin' Wolf to, Tom Petty, and I mean everything in between. But it's almost it always goes back to the blues, right? I mean that's kind of the roots and the foundation of what we know as modern music. It all kind of goes back to the blues, right?
Absolutely, and it's underrated as well. A lot of these blues artists, at the turn of the century, that were really pioneering the roots from which all modern music would grow. They're relatively obscure, and I think especially in the the late '60s, early '70s, it's really cool that a lot of British artists, like specifically the Stones, took a lot of these blues guys and put them at the helm of the ship. I remember watching a documentary in which Mick Jagger and all the guys in the Stones wouldn't perform on a late-night television show here in America unless the television show also booked Howlin' Wolf. And I really do think it takes the respect of modern artists to throw it back to the forefathers of modern music and make sure that these people are held up and revered for the great work that they have done for music. And that's definitely something that Megan and I focus on. It's addictive once you start educating yourself on roots American music and you start digging into these blues traditions. It's like you've stepped into a whole new world, and we really hope to be a jump-off point for generations moving forward to be inspired to go back and check out music that, was at the beginning of it all.
Yeah, when did you all start actually kind of digging back and getting into some of that stuff? Because it's almost, and it stinks that it's like this, but there's not a lot of people, in modern times that are growing up, at 12 years old or 11 years old or whatever, and like, oh, I'm going to jam out to some Howlin' Wolf or, Muddy Waters or whatever. Unfortunately, not a lot of people are doing that. When did you all start kind of discovering the older music and going back and tracing the roots?
We grew up listening to the Allman Brothers, and it's not been for the past maybe four years that we've gone back to figure out who the Allman Brothers were listening to.
Yeah.
And that was kind of Elvis, because we've toured for a long time with Elvis Costello, and he's such a music historian that he suggested to us that we go back and do our due diligence and figure out the history of the music that we're making. So that was kind of on his suggestion.
Yeah, I've heard people say before the best thing to do as a musician or as someone who's just genuinely interested in learning about the progression of music over the years is to, take your favorite artist, whatever that happens to be, your favorite modern artist, and then see who that person was inspired by, and then go back and see who that person was inspired by, and that person. And at the end of the day, I think you go back, once you trace back the family tree, it goes back to about 2 or 3 blues artists, and it all goes back to Robert Johnson at the Crossroads, pretty much. But
I think it's really important to understand the chain of events that leads back to the source. And, it's tricky, especially in some of these traditional, art forms, like from blues to bluegrass to country, It's easy to use the art form as a vehicle. Like, I think that there are a lot of artists, nowadays that are cherry picking and, trying to step inside this vehicle without paying homage to the people that really did pioneer it. And, in keeping with the blues tradition, I think it's really appropriate for modern artists to try and pioneer the genre even further, and that's something that we tried to do with our records. Instead of just, being a blues band or being a bluegrass band, like, what we want to do is to marry together all of the music that we are inspired by and pay tribute to those that have come before, but then also take our creative, part in the process of trying to make something new, trying to make something fresh that keeps pushing the genre forward. That's been a major focus for us in recent years, and I'm really proud of how it came together for this album, Self-Made Man, for sure.
Yeah, and Self-Made Man is coming out June the 12th. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with the gals from Larkin Poe. I want to talk a little bit more about the album and what we can expect here in just a second, but first I want to ask, because you mentioned the bluegrass thing just a second ago, and that reminds me, you all had like a bluegrass thing that you were doing before you kind of founded Larkin Poe, correct? And was that kind of your first introduction to performing music?
It was. We grew up as little kids playing classical violin and piano, but in our early teens, we were like, 11, 12 years old, and we went to a bluegrass festival and just absolutely fell in love with bluegrass music. And that, really was, I think, the turning point for us in which music became like our obsession, and writing songs and learning how to improvise and inserting ourselves into the creative process. It was so exciting to us as little kids, and that's just been something that's continued to grow and change. We toured with our eldest sister for about 5 years in the early 2000s, like 2005 to 2010, as the Lowell Sisters, and we were like a hardcore bluegrass group. Oh, yeah.
Straight bluegrass.
And then in 2010, our eldest sister, she kind of like went and did her own thing, and that's when Megan and I started Larkin Poe.
Yeah, and bluegrass music, a lot of people don't probably realize this who are outside of a musical circle. I mean, I know this as a guitar player and, an amateur guitar player myself. If you grow up playing bluegrass music, I mean, that makes you a better player. You have to be really tight, and to play with other people in a bluegrass group, you've got to be really, really tight and concise. And I would imagine that probably developed you, both of you, as far as being able to play off of each other and the chemistry that you've got with your instruments and your vocals and so on and so forth.
Oh, 100%. I feel like bluegrass, Megan.
I know, if you go to a bluegrass festival and listen to any of the players up on that stage, they're going to be like the best players you've ever heard.
Right. I mean, even some of the lesser known. I mean, I was actually talking to someone about this morning. One of my favorite guitar players is a guy named Tony Rice. A lot of people don't even know who he is, but the guy has shaped so much modern music, and he's one of the most influential guitar players ever. But unfortunately, some of these people don't get the props that they deserve. Now, Self-Made Man, I want to talk about that because it's coming out June the 12th. What can we expect from Self-Made Man? What can we expect as an album?
I think you can expect a lot of energy from this album. We toured a lot in the 2 years preceding making Self-Made Man, and had some amazing touring experiences, played all over the world. We're touring in ways that we never had before, like tours were selling out. It was really crazy. So we went into the making of this album with kind of a different perspective of what songs we could imagine being super fun to play live and really amazing to sing with our audiences. So I think that will translate into the album like a lot of live energy.
And you guys just put out another new single today, is that correct?
Yeah, we did. The song is Keep Diggin'. And it's the third single we've released, and it kind of provides another perspective on the shape of the record, and we do love it. It's a song that was kind of inspired by the trash talking that I think Southerners are so especially adept at. We had a lot of really strong-willed Southern women in our family tree, and we certainly know how to bless a heart, and so we wanted to try and channel some of that into the song Keep Diggin'.
Well, Larkin Poe, Self-Made Man, is coming out June the 12th, and I encourage everybody to check these girls out if you haven't already. They make some phenomenal music. It's roots rock and... Is that how you would describe it? Roots rock and roll?
Heck yeah, all the way.
So, Larkin Poe, June the 12th, Self-Made Man. Thanks, girls, for calling in and hanging out with us a little bit. It's always a pleasure.
No, our pleasure. Thanks, man.
Thanks.
Serving Meade County and surrounding areas, this is 93.5 WMMG.
Whoa, Black Betty, bam-ba-lam, whoa, Black Betty, bam-ba-lam, Black Betty had a child, bam-ba-lam, the damn thing go wild, bam-ba-lam, whoa, out of my mind, bam-ba-lam, the damn thing gone blind, bam-ba-lam, whoa, Black Betty, jump steady, Black Betty, jump steady, Black Betty now.